and then he follows up here on what did change for the defense last year.
What changed last year was the influx of more coverage concept that we used to do, okay, that we just reinvented for us. And there was a process to it that is in really good shape right now. And I'm jacked about where we are now with putting it all together. There was a time here where you watched us. We had evolved into a pretty simplistic way of playing, and we kicked butt with it, and it worked out great, and our players matched up and all that. And then I lost coaches on both sides of the ball, and they took our scheme everywhere, and people knew how to get after it because we really had some real intricacies about it that made it unique and all. We've just adapted. We just continued to grow and adapt.
Yeah, I think, he said,
Decipher, Dave?
He said something about the pass coverage not being a problem. Well, one of the things that wasn't a problem is that they weren't dropping D linemen into coverage.
Yeah. That helps when Poona Ford and Carlos Dunlap are not dropped into coverage.
That was the year before. So they got guys that are able to do that. I would argue maybe Darrell Taylor needs to refine his drop, skills and things like that. But yeah, I think that's what he's talking about, that you have the right kind of personnel out there. Should have asked this to Cliff. I don't think he ever dropped back in coverage. Maybe.
He must have at some point, right? But not like we saw them doing with Poona. And I don't know what his skills were in dropping into coverage. He looks physically more suited to do it. Maybe he was not good at it. I have no idea. But when you talk about Poona, you're just physically looking at the guy, it doesn't make sense.
I've hated that ever since I played in the NFL. I mean, and it used to be just called a zone blitz. You're going to drop, you're going to send a backer, you're going to drop somebody in. And I just remember sitting in film going, is anybody going to teach these D linemen how to drop? Because there's a progression. You need to, there's certain little intricacies of, like, if they stop a guy in front of you, they're stopping a guy behind you. They want you to jump the guy because he's all you can see. You have to imagine the guy behind you. That takes discipline. And, the same thing is, like, if a guy's going across, there's going to be another one coming back. So make sure you don't chase. And
do you say a lot of them would just go to a patch of grass and stand?
Yeah, absolutely.
I got this area covered right here in case somebody runs by.
Well, look, I mean, it's somewhat helpful, but I mean, you still, quarterbacks are good enough to be able to fit it in between a zone if you're not, moving and trying to, figure out what they're doing. I thought one of the best I've ever seen was Bruce Irvin. Bruce Irvin just, and he had played safety at one point in his career. Now, I don't know if that was in high school or junior college or whatever, but when he dropped back into coverage, his instincts were really good. Like, he did exactly what I thought a linebacker should do. But
even though he didn't want to do that.
Yeah, he didn't want to do that. And he actually got a couple pick sixes, 2 in 1 year.
Didn't like him. Wanted a sack.
That was 2014. He had 2 pick sixes in that year. In that season. But, yeah, it's just very rare. So I didn't see a lot of that where guys looked confused like we saw the year before. But that's just something that's always perplexed me of why they would drop guys back into coverage like that. It's just been something I've been complaining about for 40 years.
Well, how often does it work? That would be my question. Like, okay, I get you're trying to, he said people were figuring out their scheme and the intricacies and all that. And so this is their chess move. This is, all right, here's how we're going to counter that. But how long do you go with it before you go, okay, this isn't working, or this is a detriment. This is becoming, a negative in terms of dropping Poona or Carlos Dunlap, people like that.
It's such a change up too. That's the other thing. It's a change up. You don't throw that every single time. I mean, and that's the thing. It used to be there's a surprise element. Like, you see an offensive lineman, you're counting him in the blocking thing, and then the quarterback sees the guy that's going to drop into the zone, and all of a sudden they switch, and it happens real quick, and it takes everybody by surprise. It wasn't surprising anyone when the Seahawks were calling it.
Nobody was caught off guard.
Yeah, so, that was just, I probably sent you guys 50 videos during those seasons when that was happening. But, yeah, it's just something that, it sounds like they've gotten away from. And, they have the right guys dropping back into coverage. And I just don't remember seeing a lot of that. And I'm not saying that if you do it every once in a while, it's terribly wrong. It's a good change-up, but just not something that you should see often.
Pete went on to talk about using different styles based on the players that they have.
And so what we've always been open to is Clint can coach all of it, like Danny Quinn. He's got that same background, and so we have the way to use the different principles of techniques based on the players that we have, and we don't want to ask guys to do things that they're not good at. So we adapt as we go, and the flexibility and the history of our scheme allows us to have that open to us.
Well, not sure what the last word there was, but he said they're not going to ask guys to do things they're not good at.
Yeah.
Which is a change.
Yeah, and I think he is, I think that'll help Darrell Taylor a lot. Now, maybe Darrell Taylor can develop into a little bit better of a run player, and he really does need to do that, and it's not a huge criticism of him. He's incredibly athletic. He's an amazing pass rusher, but there are certain things that, you can't pass rush on a rundown.
Yeah.
Because what happens is you're going to turn sideways, you're going to get blocked out, you're going to get
open the door there.
Yeah, open the gate.
The gate. Sorry,
yeah, we'll ask Moyer about that.
Door, the gate.
I always tease Moyer about opening the gate on the play where Biles got ran over on the. But no, Paul was a good response.